trashed diamond, billionaire's treasure. Welcome back, dream chasers. How does a woman who sacrificed her soul for her husband's dream react when he discards her like a forgotten accessory? For 10 years, Amelia Grant poured her life into Adrian Vance's ambition, only for him to tell her she no longer fit the canvas he wanted to paint. He abandoned her for a younger, flashier model who represented the glamorous life he now craved. Alone and shattered, Amelia thought her story was over. But what happens when the deepest betrayal becomes the catalyst for an incredible new chapter? This is the story of how hitting rock bottom can be the perfect foundation for building an empire, and how one man's trash truly becomes a billionaire's treasure. Before we dive into this ultimate revenge story, hit subscribe and like this video. If you've ever been underestimated, this is for you. Chapter 1. The Silent Betrayal in Miami. The first thing Amelia Grant noticed was the silence in their minimalist, painfully white condo in South Beach, Miami. It wasn't a peaceful quiet. It was a heavy, suffocating blanket of unspoken words. For a month, Adrian Vance had moved through their shared life like a ghost. The laughter that once echoed across the polished micro-cement floors had been replaced by the sterile hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city. They had built this life together, one painful brick at a time. 10 years ago, Adrian was an architectural draftsman with big dreams and an empty wallet. Amelia was a promising sculptor, her hands capable of breathing life into cold clay. But she lovingly put away her tools to work 2 jobs to fund Adrian's master's degree and encourage him as he founded his own luxury firm, Vanguard Designs. She was the silent partner, the unpaid assistant, the strategist who helped him land his first big contract. His success was their success, or so she believed. That night, the silence finally broke. Adrian stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, not looking at the city lights below, but at his own reflection. He wore a custom Italian suit she didn't recognize, ridiculously expensive. "Amelia, we need to talk," he said, his voice as cold and distant as the glass he faced. Her heart, which had been nervously fluttering, dropped into the pit of her stomach. "Okay," she whispered, her hands clinging to the marble countertop edge. He turned, and for the first time in weeks, looked directly at her. But the warmth she knew had vanished. His eyes, once full of shared dreams, were now clinical, assessing. "This isn't working anymore," he stated, not with sadness, but with the finality of a business decision. "I've changed. My life has changed." "Our life has changed, Adrian," she corrected softly, a desperate plea in her tone. "We worked so hard for this." A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. "No, I worked for this. Amelia, you're comfortable. You're familiar, but I'm not the man I was. I move in circles now where image is everything. I need someone who fits that image, someone who complements the vision." The words were like small, sharp daggers. "Complements the vision? I helped you create the vision. What are you saying?" Finally, he had the decency to look away, his gaze landing on a small, worn clay bird she had sculpted years ago. The only piece of her former life she insisted on keeping on the mantel. He always said he loved it. Now, he looked at it with disdain. "I've met someone," he said, the 3 words landing with the force of a physical blow. "Her name is Valerie. She's a model. She understands the world I'm in now. The galas, the networking, the pressure." Amelia felt the air leave her lungs. Valerie. She had seen photos of them in online social columns, captioned, "Architect Adrian Vance and friend." Amelia had forced herself to believe his excuses, that it was just networking, that photographers were intrusive. Now, the deliberate cruelty of it all burned her. "A model?" she repeated, the word tasting like ash. "So that's it. 10 years of marriage, of building you up from nothing, and you're trading it for a pretty accessory. It's more than that, and it's insulting for you to simplify it, he retorted, his guilt manifesting as anger. She gets it. She gets me. With you, I feel like I'm constantly looking backward. I need to look forward. He walked to their bedroom and returned with a sleek leather suitcase she had gifted him for their last anniversary. It was already packed. He had planned it. The coldness, the distance of the past month, it had all been a calculated withdrawal. All legal documents will be sent to you by my lawyer, he said, adjusting his tie. I've made sure you'll be comfortable. The condo is yours. I will be more than fair. He was treating their divorce like a severance package. Amelia felt a wave of nausea. Fair? You think money makes this fair? Adrian, look at me. We promised forever. People change, Amelia. He put his hand on the doorknob. He paused and looked at her, his expression a mixture of pity and impatience. I'm sorry it has to be this way. I truly hope you find happiness. The empty phrase was more insulting than the betrayal itself. He opened the door, and the sterile silence of the hallway flooded in. Before he left, he offered one last piece of advice, a final, devastating blow. My advice? Start thinking about your own future. You can't live in my shadow forever. And then he was gone. The door clicked, and the heavy silence returned. Only this time, it was filled with the deafening noise of her world collapsing. Audience check. Who is the true villain here? Adrian for his betrayal, or Amelia for sacrificing her own dreams? Comment below. Chapter 2. Rock Bottom and the Reclamation. The following days were a gray fog. Amelia moved through the condo like a ghost in a life that was no longer hers. Every object screamed Adrian's name. The espresso machine he had to have. The ridiculously uncomfortable sofa he chose because it was featured in a design magazine. The framed blueprints of his award-winning skyscraper hanging on the wall. A project whose initial concept she had helped devise on a napkin in a cheap coffee shop years ago. Her friends rallied around her. Her best friend Carmen, a fiery redhead with a no-nonsense attitude, came armed with 2 bottles of high-end wine and a plan to burn all of Adrian's remaining possessions. They spent one night packing up his books, his clothes, the ridiculously large collection of pretentious architectural awards into boxes, labeling them ego and snake shedding. It drew a temporary smile from Amelia, but when Carmen left, the emptiness returned, larger and more cavernous than before. The real torture, however, came from the digital world. Adrian and Valerie were not discreet. Their new life was broadcast in high definition across every social media platform. There they were, clinking champagne glasses on a yacht in Ibiza. There was Valerie, draped over Adrian at a red carpet event, her dress valued at more than Amelia's car. The model's Instagram was a curated diary of their perfect romance. Each post was a meticulously crafted knife twisting in Amelia's wound. The captions were the worst. With my visionary man, so blessed to have a partner who inspires me every day. Amelia knew she should stop looking, block them, delete the apps. But it was like touching a sore tooth. The pain was confirmation that this was real, that her past life hadn't been a dream. Adrian's advice, to start thinking about her own future, echoed in her mind. A cruel taunt. What future? She had poured her entire being into his. She hadn't sculpted in years. Her hands, once clay-stained, had softened from typing his proposals and managing his calendar. One rainy Tuesday, a messenger delivered a large, sleek black box. Inside, nestled in satin, was the small, worn clay bird, the one from the mantel. There was no note, just the object. A clear message. I don't even want this reminder of you. That was the turning point. The final calculated rejection of the last piece of her that had lingered in his life. Holding the little bird in her hand, a sob tore from her, a raw, ragged sound of absolute desolation. She sank to the floor, the boxes labeled ego surrounding her like headstones. She wasn't just heartbroken. She was empty. He hadn't just taken her future. He had stolen her past, reframing their 10 years together as a mere stepping stone to his ascent. After hours of crying, something inside her shifted. The pain was still there, a massive, unmovable weight. But a small spark of rage flickered beside it. Who was Adrienne Vance to decide her worth? Who was he to erase her? She stood up, her legs shaking, and walked to a closet she hadn't opened in years. Behind old coats and forgotten luggage was a large, dust-covered trunk. She opened it with an effort. Inside, wrapped in old fabric, were her sculpting tools, bags of hardened clay, and half-finished projects from a past life. Her trembling fingers traced the cool metal of a wire tool. She remembered the feel of the clay beneath her hands, the way it yielded, the way it could be molded from a formless lump into something with meaning and beauty. She wasn't a footnote. She was a creator. He had taken the blueprint for her life, but she still knew how to build. That night, for the first time in nearly a decade, Amelia didn't sleep. She worked. She grabbed a block of clay, and with tears still carving paths down her dusty cheeks, she began to sculpt. She didn't know what she was making. She just let the rage, the pain, and the grief guide her hands. She was no longer just his ex-wife. She was Amelia Grant again, and she was reclaiming herself, one handful of clay at a time. Chapter 3. The Malasana Treasure. The following months were a slow, arduous process of reconstruction. Amelia sold the sterile white condo. It was too filled with ghosts, and the profits gave her the freedom not to worry about money for a while. She found a small, light-filled studio in an older, artsier part of the city, Wynwood, Miami, with high ceilings and brick walls that were forgiving of dust and mess. She spent her days covered in clay, rediscovering the muscles in her hands and the creative fire in her soul. Her work was different now. The soft, whimsical birds and figures of her youth were gone. In their place were powerful abstract forms, sculptures that twisted and reached, some looking like they were collapsing under their own weight, others soaring with defiant energy. They were a physical manifestation of her emotional landscape, breakage, resilience, and the slow, painful process of healing. Carmen, always her champion, was amazed. "Amelia, these are incredible," she said, walking carefully around a large, complex piece that resembled a fractured heart held together by impossibly thin strands. "They're so raw. You have to show them." Amelia simply shook her head. "They're not for anyone else. They're just for me." She was terrified of exposing herself, of being judged, and feeling deficient again. Carmen, however, was persistent. She owned a small, quirky bookstore cafe in a trendy arts district called the Coffee and Canvas Corner. "Just one piece, Amelia. My window display is empty right now. It gets amazing foot traffic. No pressure, no gallery opening, no critics. Just one sculpture in a window. Let it breathe a little." After a week of gentle prodding, Amelia caved. She chose a piece she had recently finished. It was the bust of a woman's head, but it was split down the middle. One side was smooth and serene. The other, a chaotic, textured tangle of forms that looked like they were breaking apart. Yet, from the center of the chaos, a single delicate hand emerged, reaching toward the light. She called it fractured, not broken. Carmen helped her install it on a simple pedestal in the bookstore's front window, surrounded by classic novels. Amelia felt a terrifying vulnerability watching her work so exposed, a piece of her soul on public display. She avoided the street completely for the first few days. But then, Carmen started sending her photos. Images of people pausing on the sidewalk, their faces filled with curiosity and contemplation. One photo showed an art student sketching it in a notebook. A text message read, "Some guy in a ridiculously sharp suit stood here staring at it for 10 whole minutes." Gave me the chills, but in a rich, important way. Amelia dismissed it, but the seed of confidence had been planted. Maybe her work did have a voice. Maybe it could speak to people. One afternoon, a week later, an email landed in her inbox. The subject line was simply, "Inquiry regarding your sculpture." The sender's name was Pablo Sanchez, with an email address from a corporate entity she didn't recognize. Beaumont Group Holdings. The email was brief and formal. "Dear Ms. Grant, I am the executive assistant to Mr. Alastair Beaumont. Mr. Beaumont has expressed a profound interest in the sculpture currently displayed at the Coffee and Canvas corner. He would like to discuss the possibility of acquiring it and speak with you about your portfolio. He has requested a meeting at your earliest convenience. A car will be sent for you. Sincerely, Pablo Sanchez, Executive Assistant to the CEO, Beaumont Group Holdings." Amelia's blood ran cold. Mr. Alastair Beaumont. The name was legendary. He was a reclusive, almost mythical billionaire, known for his eccentric nature and his portfolio of ultra-luxury brands, from exclusive resorts to high-fashion labels. He hadn't been photographed in public in over a decade. Adrian had spent 6 months trying and failing to get a meeting with Beaumont's firm for a potential project. This had to be a joke, a cruel hoax. She almost deleted the email, but curiosity, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time, got the better of her. With trembling hands, she typed a brief reply agreeing to a meeting the next day. She had no idea that this single email, sparked by a piece of her broken heart sitting in a bookstore window, was about to set in motion a chain of events that would not only change her life, but also serve a plate of karma so cold Adrian Vance would never see it coming. CTAs. Do you think this is a cruel trick, or is fate finally dealing Amelia a winning hand? Comment your theories. Chapter 4. The Magnate's Proposal. The next day, a sleek black car, so quiet it seemed to glide rather than drive, pulled up to her modest studio. The driver, a stoic man in a sharp uniform, opened the door for her. Amelia, dressed in her best black trousers and a simple silk blouse, felt woefully underdressed as she sank into the plush leather interior. The car smelled of wealth, a subtle, clean aroma that was worlds away from the earthy scent of clay and turpentine that usually clung to her. They drove into the heart of the financial district, stopping at a skyscraper that pierced the clouds in the city's Four Towers business area. Beaumont Group Holdings' logo was so discreet, it was almost invisible. This was not a place that needed to advertise its power. It simply existed. In the lobby, she was greeted by a tall, impeccably dressed man in his 50s, with silver hair and intelligent eyes. "Ms. Grant, I'm Pablo Sanchez. It's a pleasure." His handshake was firm, and his genuine smile slightly eased her nerves. He led her to a private elevator that ascended at a dizzying speed, opening directly into a vast corner office. 3 of the walls were pure glass, offering a stunning, godlike view of the entire city. The 4th wall was a library of antique-looking books. The only furniture was a massive modern desk made of a single piece of polished oak and 2 simple chairs. And seated behind the desk, not looking at her but at the city below, was Mr. Alastair Beaumont. He was older than she expected, perhaps in his 70s, with a shock of white hair and a face etched with the kind of lines that spoke of both intense thought and rare, hearty laughter. He wore a simple cashmere sweater, not a suit. He didn't speak for a full minute, and Amelia stood uncomfortably by the door. Pablo had vanished as quietly as he appeared. Finally, Beaumont turned his head, and his eyes, a surprisingly piercing blue, settled on her. They were eyes that missed nothing. "Amelia Grant," he said, his voice a low, rough murmur. "The artist. Please sit." She took one of the chairs, her hands firmly clasped in her lap. "The fractured, not broken sculpture," he began, getting straight to the point. "An interesting title. It speaks of resilience, of value not in perfection, but in the struggle to remain whole. Tell me about it." Startled by his directness, Amelia found herself speaking. She told him about the piece, not the divorce, but the abstract feelings behind it. The idea of strength and vulnerability, of beauty and imperfection. She spoke with a passion she thought she had lost. He listened intently, nodding slowly. When she finished, he swiveled his chair to face her fully. "I am launching a new brand, Ms. Grant. My final legacy project, you might say. It is called Elite. It will span from haute couture to jewelry and fragrances. The market is saturated with brands that sell a fantasy of perfection. Flawless teenage models selling anti-aging creams, retouched celebrities selling an idea of life that no one actually lives. It's a hollow, boring lie." He leaned forward, his blue eyes intense. "Elite will not sell fantasy. It will sell authenticity. It will celebrate character, wisdom, resilience. The beauty of a life fully lived, with all its scars and triumphs." Amelia's heart began to beat faster, a confusing mixture of fear and dawning comprehension swirling in her stomach. "I don't understand, Mr. Beaumont. What does this have to do with me?" "I researched you, Amelia," he said flatly, and a chill ran down her spine. "I know who you were married to. I know the story of Vanguard Designs. I know your name is on the door, but the foundation was built by your hands. He discarded you when you no longer fit his image." He said the word image with the same disdain Adrian had used, but for an entirely different reason. "Your sculpture told me half the story. The internet told me the rest. You are a woman with substance, with talent, with a quiet strength, who was cast aside for a shallow, fleeting illusion. You are everything my brand represents." He stood and walked to the window, his back to her. "I don't want to buy your sculpture, Amelia. I want to buy your story. I want you to be the face of Elite." The air in the room seemed to vanish. Amelia stared at his silhouette. She finally choked out. "Mr. Beaumont, I'm not a model. I'm nearly 40. I have lines, and I wouldn't know where to start." "Good," he interrupted, turning to face her. "I'm not looking for a model. I'm looking for a woman. The world is tired of being sold an impossible standard. They are hungry for something real. Your lines are a testament to joy. Your story is a testament to survival. That is infinitely more beautiful and valuable than the empty perfection that Valerie, or whatever her name is, sells." He walked back to his desk and pushed a thick folder across the polished surface. "This is the preliminary contract. The compensation is substantial. But this is not just a modeling job. You would be a brand ambassador, a creative consultant. I want your input, your artistic eye. I want you to help me build this. All I ask is that you be yourself, your authentic self, fractured but not broken." But Amelia looked from his penetrating gaze to the folder. Inside was a life she couldn't possibly have imagined. An opportunity not just to rebuild, but to construct something magnificent from the ruins of her past. It was terrifying. It was audacious. And perhaps it was the most perfect, elegant form of justice she could ever dream of. CTAs. Amelia is at a crossroads. Would you take the deal and risk public life for the ultimate revenge, or choose to stay private? Let us know in the comments. The makeover, from quiet wife to icon of authenticity. Welcome back, dream builders. Amelia has accepted the deal of a lifetime. But can a sculptor, discarded for being too familiar, handle the blinding spotlight of global luxury? Hit like and comment transform if you're ready for the ultimate glow-up. Chapter 5. The Metamorphosis of Elite. Saying yes to Mr. Alistair Beaumont was the most terrifying and exhilarating moment of Amelia's life. The following days were a whirlwind, a complete immersion into a world she had only ever seen from the outside. The Elite project was already a well-oiled machine operating in secrecy for over a year. Now, she was its centerpiece. Her first meeting was with the creative team, led by a formidable woman named Sylvia Reyes, a legendary art director with a severe haircut and an even more severe reputation for perfectionism. Amelia walked into the minimalist conference room, feeling like a lamb to the slaughter. The room was filled with incredibly chic young creatives who stopped talking and stared when she entered. Sylvia, however, did not look at Amelia with judgment, but with intense, analytical curiosity. "So," Sylvia said, her accent sharp and precise, "you are our authenticity." The first few weeks were a crucible. Amelia was subjected to fittings, not to change her, but to find clothes that expressed who she was. The stylists didn't push her into uncomfortable, trendy outfits. Instead, they brought her timeless, elegant pieces in rich fabrics: cashmere, silk, tailored wool. They taught her that style wasn't about following trends, but about understanding silhouette and substance. The most challenging part was the photography. The lead campaign photographer was a world-renowned artist named Marcos, famous for his raw, unretouched portraits. His lens felt like a microscope on the soul. During their first session, Amelia was stiff and self-conscious, hypersensitive to every perceived flaw: the faint scar on her chin from a childhood fall, the way her eyes crinkled when she smiled. "Stop posing," Marcos commanded, his voice gentle but firm. "I'm not here to photograph a mannequin. I'm here to photograph Amelia. Talk to me. Tell me about the first time you felt clay in your hands." As she spoke, she forgot the camera. She remembered the messy, joyous feeling of creation. A genuine smile touched her lips, and her posture relaxed. "Click. Tell me about a time you felt truly lost," he said. The memory of Adrian walking out the door flashed through her mind. Her expression shifted. A flash of pain and resilience passed through her eyes. Click. He didn't ask her to smile, pout, or look seductive. He asked her to feel. The resulting photographs were stunning. They weren't photos of a model. They were portraits of a woman. In one shot, her clay-dusted hands were the focus. In another, she was captured mid-laughter, a genuine, unguarded laugh that illuminated her entire face. In the most powerful one, she simply looked at the camera, her gaze steady and clear, her expression conveying a quiet strength that was more compelling than any conventional beauty. Throughout the process, Mr. Alistair Beaumont was a distant but constant presence. He reviewed campaign materials, providing brief, insightful notes. He met with Amelia once a week. They didn't discuss marketing strategies, but art, literature, and life. He was mentoring her, shaping not just her public image, but her belief in herself. Adrian Vance's mistake was that he only sees value in the finished, polished product, Mr. Beaumont said during one of their meetings. He does not understand that the real value, the true beauty, is in the process, the fire that forges, the pressure that creates the diamond. Elite does not sell a product. We celebrate the process. Amelia began to transform, not on the surface, but from the inside out. The hesitant, broken woman who had entered his office was being replaced by a confident, serene person who understood her own worth. She was no longer just the sculptor or the ex-wife. She was becoming the embodiment of the elite spirit. She provided input on the scent of the first fragrance, suggesting notes of earth and amber that reminded her of her studio. She consulted on the design of a jewelry line, sketching pieces inspired by the beautiful imperfections of nature. She was not a hired face. She was a partner. The week before the global launch, Pablo showed her the final centerpiece of the campaign, a massive billboard destined for Times Square, via Monte Napoleone, and every major fashion capital. It was the photograph of her looking directly at the camera. Her unretouched face filled the frame. Her eyes told a story of pain, survival, and quiet triumph. Beneath it, there was no product, just a single word in elegant script: elite. And below that, a simple tagline: beauty is the story you tell. Looking at the image, Amelia did not see the woman Adrian had left behind. She saw herself, whole and powerful. The campaign was ready. The world had no idea what was coming, and Adrian Vance was about to learn the price of mistaking a diamond for trash. Chapter 6: The Cosmic Account Settlement. The launch of Elite was not a gradual rollout. It was a global shockwave. Overnight, the campaign was everywhere. Amelia's face dominated cityscapes. Full-page ads, featuring Marcos's stunning portraits, graced the covers of Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, and Vanity Fair. The television commercial, a beautifully shot, one-minute film that told the story of a woman reclaiming her passion and her life, played during prime-time slots. There was no loud music or flashy graphics, just Amelia's compelling presence and a quiet, confident voiceover. The campaign was an immediate, explosive success. It was the talk of the fashion and marketing world. Pundits praised its audacity, its revolutionary approach to luxury. But for the general public, it was more than that. It was a story. News outlets, fashion blogs, and social media influencers rushed to uncover the identity of the mysterious, captivating woman who was the face of Elite. Within hours, the story broke. The face of Elite was not a supermodel, but a sculptor and the ex-wife of renowned architect Adrian Vance. The narrative was irresistible. The media framed it as the ultimate story of karmic justice. Articles detailed her past, her role in building Adrian's firm, the humiliating public breakup, and her subsequent rediscovery by the enigmatic Mr. Patamondert, Alistair Beaumont. She was instantly cast as a hero, a symbol of resilience for anyone who had ever been underestimated or discarded. Amelia Grant and Elite became the top trending topics worldwide. For Adrian and Valerie, the day started like any other. They woke up in their luxurious penthouse, their world still revolving around their own perceived importance. Adrian was preparing for a crucial presentation, hoping to land a career-defining contract with an international investor group. Valerie was scrolling through her phone, annoyed that a new campaign was cluttering her social media feed. "Ugh! Have you seen this Elite campaign? It's everywhere," Valerie complained, without looking up from her screen. "Some old lady is the face. How bizarre." Adrian, adjusting his tie in the mirror, grunted non-committally. "Beaumont's new brand. He's an eccentric. Probably a desperate attempt to look authentic." It was his assistant who broke the news. She called Adrian, her voice frantic. "Sir, have you seen the news? You need to look at the Elite campaign. It's Amelia." Adrian's blood froze. He snatched Valerie's phone and stared. There on the screen was his ex-wife. Not the quiet, mousy Amelia he remembered, but a powerful, luminous woman looking directly out from the digital page, her eyes holding a universe of strength he had never bothered to see. He clawed. clicked on a news article, his hands shaking. The headline screamed, "From heartbreak to billboards, the incredible story of Amelia Grant." He read in stunned silence, the words blurring. Her talent, her contribution to his success, his betrayal. It was all exposed for the world to see. He was no longer the visionary architect. He was the villain in Amelia's triumphant story. Valerie peered over his shoulder, her perfectly made-up face contorting with disbelief and fury. "That's her! That's your ex-wife! This is a joke, right? This is a sick joke!" Her panic was palpable. Her own career was built on a foundation of conventional, youthful beauty. Amelia's campaign was a direct refutation of everything she stood for. Suddenly, Valerie was the one who looked dated, shallow, and irrelevant. The image of the power couple they had so carefully constructed had shattered overnight. Adrian's phone began to vibrate incessantly. Calls from his partners, his clients, his mother. The investors he was supposed to meet with sent a terse email postponing the meeting indefinitely. The narrative had flipped. He was no longer the man who achieved greatness. He was the fool who had thrown away a diamond, utterly oblivious to its value, until it was displayed for the entire world to see. He sank onto the edge of his designer bed, the phone falling from his hand. He looked around the penthouse at all the trappings of the perfect life he had so ruthlessly pursued. For the first time, it all felt cheap, hollow, and utterly meaningless. A dozen blocks away, his ex-wife's face presided over the city on a massive billboard, a silent, powerful testament to his monumental error in judgment. The shadow he had told her to step out of had just eclipsed his entire world. CTAs. Adrian is reeling. Has Amelia gone too far, or is this the perfect, quiet form of justice? Let us know in the comments. The villain's end. Class, karma. Final debt. Welcome back, justice seekers. The world has seen Amelia's triumph, and Adrian's life is in ruins. But what is the final, most humiliating debt he must pay? Hit like and share if you believe that a calm spirit is the greatest victory. Chapter 7. The Villain's End. The fall from grace following the launch of Elite was swift and brutal. For Amelia, it was an overwhelming avalanche of positive attention. She was lauded as an icon of grace and strength. Talk shows wanted to interview her, magazines wanted to feature her, and women worldwide flooded her new official social media accounts with messages of support, sharing their own stories of heartbreak and resilience. She handled everything with quiet dignity, always steering the conversation back to the brand's message of authenticity, not her personal drama. For Adrian and Valerie, however, the world was crumbling. The story had a perfect villain, and it wore Adrian's face. His professional reputation suffered an immediate, catastrophic blow. The story of how Amelia had been the uncredited partner in his firm's early days spread like wildfire in the architectural community. Whispers that were once dismissed as rumors were now treated as fact. Was he truly the genius he claimed to be, or just a charismatic frontman who had discarded his creative anchor? The international investor group he had been courting withdrew completely, citing concerns over the integrity of his personal brand. Two of his junior partners, sensing the shift in the tide, resigned to start their own firm. Vanguard Designs was toxic. Adrian, in a state of panic and wounded pride, attempted to reach out to Amelia. He called her old number, which was disconnected. He emailed a long, rambling letter to the general inquiry address on the Elite website. It was a pathetic mix of a half-hearted apology and an accusation that she was doing this to ruin him. Amelia, I don't know what this is, but it has to stop. My life's work is being torn apart. If this is revenge, you've achieved your goal. We can talk about this, find a solution. I know I made a mistake. I was under so much pressure. Please call me." Amelia read the email once and deleted it without a second thought. It was no longer about him. His panic was a problem he had created for himself. Valerie's world was collapsing even more spectacularly. Her image was her currency, and it had been devalued overnight. She was the face of fleeting, superficial beauty, while Amelia was the face of timeless substance. A cosmetics brand, with whom she held a lucrative contract, put their partnership under review, citing a shift in their marketing strategy toward more relatable figures. In a cruel twist of fate, she was being discarded for failing to fit the new image sweeping the world. Her jealousy and insecurity festered, finally boiling over at a high-profile industry event a few weeks after the launch. It was a benefit gala attended by both her and Amelia, who was attending as the new face of Elite. Amelia arrived looking elegantly understated in a simple navy silk gown, escorted by the ever-impeccable Pablo Sanchez. She was immediately surrounded by admirers and photographers. Valerie, who had spent hours on her hair and makeup, found herself ignored. She watched from the sidelines, her resentment growing with every flashbulb pointed Amelia's way. Fueled by champagne and desperation, she decided to confront her. She cornered Amelia near the terrace. "You must be so proud of yourself," Valerie sneered, her voice dripping venom. "Destroying his life just because you couldn't handle being dumped." Amelia looked at her, not with anger, but with a quiet, almost compassionate expression. "This has nothing to do with Adrian, Valerie. This is my life." "Oh, please," Valerie scoffed, her voice rising. "You think anyone believes you were some nobody, and now you're pretending to be this icon of strength? It's pathetic. You're just a bitter old hag who got lucky." A small crowd, including several reporters, had begun to notice the confrontation. Pablo took a protective step forward, but Amelia subtly raised a hand to stop him. She would handle this. "You're right about one thing," Amelia said, her voice even and clear. "I was a nobody. I made myself so small for so long that I almost disappeared. But do you see the difference between us, Valerie? My value isn't based on what a man thinks of me or how I look on camera. My value comes from what I can create, from what I have overcome. You built your career on an image. I am building my life on a foundation." Valerie was momentarily speechless. Her attack completely deflated against Amelia's unwavering calm. Amelia continued, her voice softening slightly. "For what it's worth, I hope you find your own foundation someday. It's much more reliable than the spotlight." With that, Amelia turned and walked away, leaving Valerie standing exposed and humiliated under the watchful eyes of the crowd. The next day, the headlines were not about a catfight. They were about Amelia's class and Valerie's public meltdown. Valerie had not just lost the confrontation, she had proven Amelia's entire point for her. She was the illusion, and Amelia was the reality. Chapter 8. The Cosmic Debt Paid. The official launch gala for Elite was the most anticipated event of the year. It was held in a specially constructed glass and light pavilion at the Miami Botanical Gardens. The guest list was a carefully curated collection of the world's most influential figures in art, business, and culture. The theme of the night was substance and soul, and at its center was Amelia, the living embodiment of the brand. She arrived with Mr. Alistair Beaumont, who was making his first public appearance in over a decade. He was a lion in winter, his presence radiating a quiet, absolute power that made everyone else in the room seem to shrink. Amelia was stunning in a bespoke, elite emerald green silk gown. She moved through the crowd, not as an ex-wife or a model, but as a queen in her own court, greeting artists and CEOs with a confidence that was now second nature. Unbeknownst to her, Adrian had managed to secure an invitation. He had used every remaining favor he had, desperate for a final, face-to-face confrontation. He looked gaunt, a shadow of the shrewd, confident man who had abandoned her months ago. His firm was on the brink of collapse, and his relationship with Valerie had imploded in a storm of bitter, resentful accusations. He watched Amelia from across the room, a whirlpool of regret, anger, and disbelief churning inside him. She was a stranger to him now, serene, powerful, and utterly out of his reach. He waited for a moment when she was momentarily alone, looking at an exhibition of the elite jewelry line. He approached her cautiously, his heart pounding. "Amelia," he said, his voice rough. She turned, her expression unreadable. She was not surprised to see him. In a way, she had expected him. "Adrian," she acknowledged, her tone polite but distant. "You look incredible," he stammered. "Listen, we need to talk. What you're doing, this whole campaign, it's based on a lie. You're making me look like a monster." Amelia raised an eyebrow. "Am I? I have never once mentioned your name in public. I have only told my own story. If the world sees you as a monster in the reflection of my success, perhaps that is a conversation you should have with your mirror, not with me." Desperation clawed at him. "It was a mistake. I know that now. I was a fool. I miss you, Amelia. I miss what we had." "No, you don't," she said, her voice firm, devoid of the pity he craved. "You miss the idea of me. You miss the woman who held up your ego and put your dreams before her own. That woman no longer exists. In fact, I'm grateful to you for that. You set me free." Just then, Mr. Alistair Beaumont approached, placing a paternal hand on Amelia's shoulder. He looked at Adrian, and his sharp blue eyes held a glimmer of something ancient and cold. "Mr. Vance," he said, his voice a low murmur. "I am surprised you have the audacity to show your face here." Adrian bristled. "This is between my ex-wife and me. I suggest you stay out of it." "I am afraid you are mistaken," Beaumont countered softly. "This is where it ends. But it began a long, long time ago. 15 years ago, to be exact." Adrian looked confused, but a flicker of long-buried memory seemed to stir in his eyes. Beaumont continued, his voice ringing through the sudden silence that had fallen around them, as nearby guests paused to listen. "You were a junior architect at a large firm. You were assigned to a small residential project, a guest house for a private estate. The lead designer on that project was a young visionary. He developed an innovative concept for cantilevered structures that would become your signature. You were his assistant. That young designer had to take a sudden leave for a family emergency," Beaumont said, his voice like ice. "When he returned, he discovered that you had presented his core designs, his foundational concepts, as your own to the firm partners. You received the promotion. You used that stolen foundation to launch your own firm, Vanguard Designs. You buried him." Amelia looked from Mr. Beaumont to Adrian, whose face was now a mask of pure horror. "The name of that young architect," Mr. Beaumont said, delivering the final, devastating blow, "was Alistair Beaumont, Jr., my son. He was so disillusioned by the betrayal that he left the profession entirely. He is now a happy history professor, but you stole his dream." The crowd around them was silent, hanging on every word. "So you see, Mr. Vance," Beaumont concluded, "when I read how you discarded another brilliant founding partner in your life, I saw a pattern. I believe in karma, and I believe in giving deserving people the platform that was stolen from them. Elevating Amelia was not just good business. It was a cosmic debt finally being paid." He discreetly motioned to 2 security guards who had materialized nearby. "I believe you were leaving." Adrian was utterly shattered, exposed as a lifetime fraud. Without saying another word, he turned and stumbled through the crowd, the whispers and gazes following him like a shroud. His ruin was now complete, public, and absolute. This was never just a breakup. This was a lifetime of taking credit and discarding souls. And his ill had finally arrived. Conclusion: the unbreakable foundation. With Adrian's humiliating exit, a palpable sense of justice settled over the gala. Mr. Beaumont ascended the stage, not to recount the drama, but to speak about the future. He officially announced that Amelia would not only remain the continuing face of Elite, but would also assume the role of creative director for his new philanthropic arm, the Elite Foundation for the Arts, dedicated to supporting emerging artists who have been overlooked or underestimated. Amelia then gave a brief, powerful speech. She spoke not of betrayal, but of transformation. "We are all, in some way, a collection of our fractures and our repairs," she told the captivated audience. "True beauty, true substance, is not about having a flawless surface. It is about the strength of the core, the courage to rebuild, and the grace to reach for the light, even from the darkest places. Elite is not just a brand, it is a celebration of that journey." The applause was thunderous. The night was a triumph, solidifying Elite not just as a luxury brand, but as a cultural movement. In the year that followed, Amelia flourished in her new role. She traveled the world, discovering and mentoring new talent. Her sculptor's eye was uniquely suited to seeing the potential in the rough and unformed. She found immense joy and purpose in giving others the chance that had been granted to her. Her own art flourished too. Her new sculptures, imbued with a sense of peace and ascending strength, were sought after by collectors and museums worldwide. She never spoke of Adrian again. He had been a chapter, not her entire story. The epilogue for Adrian and Valerie was grim. Vanguard Designs collapsed under the weight of scandal and client defection. Adrian was forced to declare bankruptcy, his name a permanent stain on the architectural world. Valerie, her modeling career over, faded into obscurity, another casualty of a world constantly looking for the next new thing. Their relationship, built on the shifting sands of image and opportunism, had not survived the first tremor of adversity. One crisp autumn afternoon, Amelia was walking through a park in Barcelona when she saw a young woman sitting on a bench crying. She looked utterly broken. Amelia paused, then sat down at the other end of the bench. She didn't say anything, simply pulled out a small sketchbook and began to draw the pattern of the leaves on the ground. After a few minutes, the young woman's sobbing subsided. She looked at Amelia. "I'm sorry," she sniffled. "You have nothing to be sorry for," Amelia said kindly, without looking up from her sketch. "It's just a bad day. The sun will rise tomorrow." The young woman recognized her. You're Amelia Grant." Amelia smiled, a genuine, warm smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "I am. And I can tell you from experience that hitting rock bottom is a terrifying feeling, but it is also the most solid place from which to build something new, something truly your own." She tore the sketch of the leaves from her book and handed it to the woman. "Your foundation," she said. Then she rose and walked away, a woman who had not only survived the collapse of her world, but had learned to build a new one, more beautiful and far stronger than she had ever imagined. She was no longer fractured. She was whole. Interaction and CTA. What is the greatest lesson from Amelia's story? That quiet success speaks loudest, or that revenge should be strategic? Let us know your final verdict. If you were moved by this story of resilience and cosmic justice, please like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas. Thank you for listening.